Well, it is tax season, and if you're like me, you're probably trying to squeeze every last nickel out of your return this year. Or maybe this is your first time filing taxes and you don't really know where to start. Well, we've got some answers for you today. Enoch Omololu is a personal finance expert and founder of Savvy New Canadians. Always great to have you on the program. Lots to get to today. Let's just get right into it. Who needs to file a tax return in Canada?
I think everyone needs to file a tax return, even if you don't have income to report. The chances are that you will qualify for some income-tested benefits, and filing a tax return helps you get those benefits. So, for example, let's say the GST, HST credit, or the Canada Child Benefit. If you don't file a tax return, even if you qualify for these income-tested benefits, you may not get them just because you haven't filed a tax return with the CRA, and they can't assess whether or not you qualify.
So, I mean, if you have no income to report, you should still file that return. What are some of the options available in order to file that return with the CRA?
So there are so many options available today. Like, even if you have very low income or no income, you could get the tax filing done free of charge. So, for example, you could go with the free tax clinics that are being managed through the CRA via the Community Volunteer Program, or you could use the phone service. It's automated and it's called the File My Return automated phone service. Or otherwise, you could just use tax software, and there are so many of them. Like you have the TurboTax, WellTimberTax, CloudTax, YouFile, and all of those. If your income is on the low end, or if you have like a simple tax return, chances are that you can file your taxes for free, or you pay a very small amount. So think $20 thereabouts, and you can file your taxes online.
So you can do it online, as you said. You can also do paper filing. I know, back when I was growing up, my mom used to have the whole kitchen table filled with paper trying to get the return done. What are the pros and cons, I guess, of doing it online versus just good old-fashioned paper?
Online tax filing is a lot easier. Like, it's more convenient. So, for example, if you're using a tax software, it has the guides that tell you, this is the next step. Did you forget about this? Maybe you should consider claiming these tax credits. These are some things you may be missing out. It gives you like that step-by-step guide, and it's very easy to use, more so these days. With the paper tax filing, you really, unless you're used to it, it's a lot of paperwork. And there are chances that you may be missing out on some of the potential benefits, like the tax refund. Like this tax software, many of them actually guarantee that you're going to get the maximum tax refund. So that there's that guarantee. If you get something better elsewhere, they even some of them promise to actually pay you the difference. So there's some guarantee that you are maximizing your tax refund in that sense. Secondly, you are going to be getting your tax refund faster. So let's say 2 weeks for if you file taxes online, versus up to 8 weeks or longer if you are filing a paper return.
Do you need to file a tax return if you are an international student? I know a lot of students come to Manitoba to study. If you are in Manitoba studying, do you need to file a tax return?
If you're an international student, you should consider filing a tax return for sure. And like the way the CRA states it on its website is that if you do have ties, so like significant ties to Canada, you should be filing a tax return. Those ties are they're easy for you to actually meet. So, for example, if you have a driver's license, if you have a residence, if you have dependents in Canada, if you have it's very easy to actually like cross that threshold. So, ideally, you should be filing a tax return. And like I mentioned already, some benefits are applicable even if you have no income to report. For example, you could qualify for the GST, HST credit, which is free money in your pocket, even if you are not reporting income. Secondly, you could also like use your tuition credit amount. So your tuition payments, you could get a credit on those and reduce your taxes when you actually file your taxes. So, and you don't have to like claim those credits like right away. You can claim those credits in the future when you have more income to report and you have more taxes to pay. So overall, my advice to newcomers and international students is that they should always file a tax return.
Now, something that we often talk about at tax time and in the springtime especially is scams. What scams should we be watching out for during tax season in particular?
Well, the tax season is ripe for scammers who want to exploit people who are waiting for a tax refund. That's just one example. So at tax time is when you get people, scammers sending text messages or emails asking people to provide certain personal information. So for example, they can say, oh, what's your social insurance number? You owe this much amount to the CRA, and if you don't provide us that information or you don't pay your taxes owing, you will go to jail. You will suffer this penalty and all of that. So most times these are just strategies to collect their personal information, and then they steal their identity, steal their money, access their bank account and all of that. So overall, when it's tax season and in general, even outside of tax season, you should be wary of providing personal information, banking details, your social insurance number to anyone, unless you are absolutely sure they are legit. And the CRA won't be asking you this information by email anyways, or by text, or by phone. Usually, they won't be asking this information at all. So if someone is asking that information, be on the cautious side to ensure that you're not providing your personal details to scammers.
One final question for you. What are some of the tax credits and deductions that people often overlook?
I think some common ones would include things like the moving expenses. If you're moving for work, for example, you may be able to claim some of that on your tax return. Things like charitable donations are easily forgotten. You've donated, so you forget about it, but you could potentially get some refund from that. You should also consider things like you have provincial and territorial tax credits that are not as common, but they can return some money to your pocket. And I think in addition to that is just the professional dues. So if you're paying for a professional licensing, for example, as a veterinarian, I can claim that on my tax return. And union dues, the ones you pay just by default from your paycheck, those can also be claimed at tax time.
Very interesting. Enoch Omololu, thank you so much for joining me again. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks, Riley. Always a pleasure.